Hello, everybody, and welcome to Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. My name is Jay.
My name is Mike.
And no one plays with those big balls or large balls. I think I screwed it up.
That's all right. People that are watching this live get to experience this in real time. We'll start over, Jack. Don't worry.
Just for you.
Okay,
just for you. All right, you ready?
Okay.
3, 2, hold on. Wait, actually delete that track. So let's get running. All right. 3, 2, 1. And hello, everybody. Welcome to Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. My name is Jay.
My name is Mike.
No one plays with large balls, darling.
And welcome to the show. How is everyone doing out there? It is the season finale of Westworld, and thus it is also the season finale of Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. And it may be another 10 years before we may be as dusty as Bernarnold the next time we all come back and do this podcast. But excited to be talking about it with you all. Mike, I am thankful that the hat has returned for the finale episode.
I mean, it makes sense given one of the post-credit scenes.
Yes.
Right? Like, we actually saw the OG Man in Black come back. As much as William tries to be a changed man, the man in white on his path to save the world. At the end of the day, who takes him out but the man in this hat?
Okay, can we just start right there since you brought it up?
Okay, sure. We'll start at the end.
Wait. Before you jump in, I do want to mention this is a live show. It is on Monday, not the usual Sunday. So because of it's a bit controversial in the Jay and Jack universe. But what's cool about that is we have a lot of listener feedback that's going to make it into the show. But since it's also live, we have the chat live here as well, so we can plug in your questions live during the listener feedback section. I noticed one of your co-hosts on that show that will not be named is in. So, anyways, Jack, go ahead.
Oh, after all that, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, come on. You're not that old.
We haven't taken away too many of your memories at this point.
Yeah, a change. Okay, can we just stop with the whole William was a changed man? He was still the same a-hole killing bad kid. He was bad as a kid.
Good.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, the thing is that he had a mission. Otherwise, he was just aimlessly doing it to try to satiate a part of him. Now he feels like at least he has a cause for it.
Hey, security guard. Boom. Sorry, I'm on a mission. Boom. You got a family? Boom. I'm sorry. I'm on a mission.
It is interesting because I guess that took place at a Delos facility somewhere that wasn't in LA. And I will say for as much for as much upheaval as was caused in LA due to all the Rehoboam stuff being leaked, like seems pretty much fine there. That made me think for a second, like, is this in the distant future for some reason? Because everyone seems to just be going about their business ordinarily. But maybe it's because it's Delos people and I don't know, maybe they're protected from this somehow.
It's LA. Most people out there are pretty clueless. Just
hates LA. I'm more, open to all peoples, like Jack. But anyway, I think let's start with the post-credit scenes because you went there, Jack, and I think we all went there. So we had two post-credit scenes, and one was the return of, I guess, Robot Man in Black, which is kind of cool because it's a bit of a call back to the movie, which is the Yul Brynner, the robot Yul Brynner. But I did kind of have this. Oh, I guess the real William's dead, or so. It was a little muddled to me, that one. And then the Bernarnold one was cool to see him wake up. I guess it's a lot, further into the future. But I was like, is Stubbs still over there, just like bleeding out slowly?
Well, I mean, I think he's pretty much dead at this point, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But it'd been funny if he had some nice witty one-liner or something like that in the tub.
Or he's like, I don't know, like his face is melted away or something. Yeah. To see he's still alive, but he's decayed beyond all measure.
What if he come back and he's not even in the tub?
Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, listen, Stubbs better play a larger role in season 4, considering that Jack, your big theory about him being the 5th Dolores was a big old unfortunately. And you had us on it though. Like, I thought it would have been an interesting resolution, but I will
wait. That wasn't my theory. That was somebody's theory I read off Twitter.
Oh, of course, right. Now that they're wrong.
Go back and check the tapes. I thought it was a great theory, but one I can't use because it's on. I read it off Twitter.
Sure.
So I'm like going, I didn't say it. I did say that Maeve would eventually turn on. I guess I was right, but that's okay.
Well, oh come on! Everyone knew that Maeve was eventually going to turn on.
Did you? You never said it.
I mean, I can state
we did several times.
Yeah, we did. That's what everyone assumed.
But it was actually a theory I had, so it's okay. Go ahead. Go on.
No, this is what happens when you hang out with Richter and Ethan. Is I don't like these new kids you're hanging out with, Jack.
Really having too much of a bad influence on you.
You think they're a bad influence on me?
Mike and I have brought you here because we're concerned for you and
in front of this live audience.
But again, it wasn't my theory about Stubbs, but I still thought it was a great theory.
So I guess we're gonna Shaloris. I guess is the big bad. Cool.
I mean, I think it makes sense given her trajectory, right?
Yeah.
Like she was initially a Dolores, which was apparently brought in under this more white hat purpose. Even though, to Jack's point, I think we'll certainly talk about like this revelation about Dolores's mission and whether or not it was worth all the people that she gunned down and like all these people's lives that she ruined. But Charlotte was meant to be a part of that, and I think losing her family and like becoming a victim in Dolores's ultimate goal, as good as it may have been, just like either it really corrupted her or she finally fully like absorbed the Charlotte Hale in her. Because remember that Charlotte Hale episode was like, oh, she's the beast, like there's this heartless person inside of you. And I think it's just her fully embracing that. And so now have that coupled with, I guess she has her hands somehow on the forge data that Serac wanted so much, because I mean, that's how she got, the Man in Black, the host version out. And assumingly that's what all those machines are working on. It's just bringing back some of our favorite hosts. So it seems like the host takeover, while was sort of sidelined by Dolores's mission, might actually become a possibility in season 4 if Charlotte has anything to say about it.
Yeah, exactly. And which is better than, I guess, or the end credit scene at least made Shaloris's presence have more meaning, because her showing up in the episode, I was like, can we not have her in this right now? Because I'm kind of enjoying this other scene. I'm just like, now she's kind of ruining this whole thing. But I get that. I get the story that they're trying to tell there for sure.
So you didn't like it when she popped up?
No, I was annoyed by it, to be honest.
I mean, I think the way that she showed up wasn't great. It was just like she told Dolores like, hey, I'm still alive and I'm betraying you. And then Dolores easily like turned the people back on her. Right. There was also this interesting thing where it seemed like every time she talked, her like face flickered or lit up.
Projection or whatever. Yeah,
so I guess it was like part of the hologram or something. It was sort of like how last episode, remember how we only saw her face? I thought like, okay, is she still patched up from the burn? I guess she was, except for one arm when she purposely left that way as a reminder of what humanity has done to her. But I mean, I think it's an interesting turn in the character, especially like we thought as an audience, we swerved into like, oh, Dolores actually was fighting for a somewhat noble cause. And then you still have this character that was doing what we thought Dolores was doing the entire time.
Exactly.
So we're not out of the woods yet, but I guess maybe that's another reason why Charlotte's presence was sort of innocuous, is because they really want to set her up as like, no, she's truly the evil representation of what Dolores could have been capable of. And so Maeve and Caleb and whoever's left is going to have to watch out come season 4.
And exactly. But to me, I found it was just a little muddled that Shaloris actually cared for her family, which was like the opposite of Charlotte, who didn't care about anybody. And their death is what made her actually care about nobody, which that didn't make sense to me in terms of that character arc. Versus
she became angry.
So then like be angry and fight on the side of good. Like now you're going against.
But
Dolores, but really,
like I said, we didn't need Charlotte to come in and Dolores to come in and tell Dolores that she was going to turn on her. She just had to listen to this podcast about 3 weeks ago. That's all she had to do. But she she's bitter. She was angry, and that was a trigger. That's she was caring for the first time ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And suddenly she cares, and Dolores, said, "No, you got to do this mission, and it doesn't matter what happens." And then again, go to that scene where she says, "Why did you give us feelings? Why did you let us feel things?"
Mm-hmm.
And that was the downfall.
Yep, and she seems to be the one that felt betrayed by the fact that Dolores had sent her back into Delos, knowing full well, like even Sirach said it, like she led you into a trap. And even though she'd get away with poisoning the entire board, she knew that as well. Of like, this is what happened with Connells. This is what happened with some of the other people. Is that like Dolores just purposely uses these other brain ball versions of her as kind of bait to serve the larger purpose. And this is, I think, because of the personality she was intermingled with, this Dolores version was mad as hell and not going to take it anymore. Whereas maybe the other ones were a bit more fine with being a cog in the machine.
You could almost say Dolores was the same as the people running running the host at Westworld, right? She had a program that they had to basically follow, and if they die, they die.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's interestingly as well, because we had this whole thing about choice this episode with Caleb, and Dolores really wasn't giving her versions a choice, right? She was sort of giving them, to Jack's point, a plan to run through to serve this greater purpose. And I can imagine that there might be some resentment there from Shaloris's end. And now that, I'll be interested to see if Sirach is alive, if Sirach is dead, what happens to Delos, considering that he had the controlling share in it. Because if Shaloris is able to get control of Delos back, obviously she can very easily use their stuff.
Yeah. Again, I get it. I get all the ways it could happen, but I was just more annoyed by it. And out of all this episode, I was annoyed by that the most.
So then did the post-credit scene make up for that, in your opinion?
Kind of, but then I was a little bit kind of like, okay, well then what was like William's point then if he's just going to be killed in this scene, and now we've got a host William? Like, is this like does he have his consciousness in that William, or is it going to be almost like Shaloris is going to have the same thing happen to her that happened to Dolores, where maybe she put her brain inside Man in Black or used whatever data they had, but it's actually going to turn on Dolores or Shaloris. I don't know. To me, it's just like, why have this whole arc for William just to have him killed in the end?
I mean, I guess,
but he was never going to do the right thing. That was just a bunch of crap. He was never going to do that. He doesn't know what the right thing is.
Then why keep his story going along? Like, why have the scene in the?
It's Ed Harris. You have to do it with Ed Harris, and then you bring him back, and then you have a way to bring Ed Harris back in season 4 by killing off William. Who killed
off Anthony Hopkins season 1? Like, you tell me, like, I love Ed Harris, but Anthony Hopkins just, I mean, to me, like, I don't know. I feel like they when we talked about like Bernard and Ed Harris's storylines, like, okay, hopefully it's going to lead somewhere. I really like how they handled Bernard's story and then bringing it to Arnold's story. And it was a really moving scene, really moving sentiment, and kind of really drove the story forward. So I thought they did a really good job of like kind of landing the plane on the Bernard story arc versus Williams, which they kind of just had it bits and pieces here and there. And then he gets to wherever he's going because he's going to save the world, but now he's just dead.
Yeah, I wonder if that was because like William had reached his end, like from his own game, psychologically speaking, right? Like he had sort of achieved his own goal by reconciling the bad stuff that he did and giving himself a higher purpose. And that, ironically enough, is like, didn't he say in his episode, like, there's a pine box waiting for me, and now he finally found it. So I guess that's the big irony, because I agree. I think that's a character that I would want to explore more, this idea of, to your point, Jack, like this guy really has a guidepost that is like really not for good, but he believes that it is. And so he's almost like a fanaticist in that regard, but we sort of end up killing him off. But I wonder if there is some sort of justice behind that. This at least gives an opportunity for Ed Harris to go like full, like for lack of a better term, robotic next season. Because I mean, we could there could be a Shaloris thing happening. I wouldn't want it to happen twice, but I mean, I can just imagine that this is just going to be like Shaloris's lackey. That this is just going to be like a cold-blooded killer. Because this is cobbled together from how William acts in the park. So you have to imagine it's going to be like the most ruthless character this show has ever seen.
Yeah, which is cool. It's good visuals and stuff. But like, is that if it is just Shaloris's sidearm, like, is that a compelling story for William at this point? So yeah, I to me, like, William deserved better than a post-credit scene. But that's just my opinion. Everything in the episode I love, but the Shaloris William thing, I was kind of like, meh.
And at least we know now, like you said, like the connection back to the season 2 finale, sort of. Like, I guess our assumption is that like that was indeed a host William that was getting tested for fidelity. The question is that the host William that we just saw kill, himself? Or was this like, did that take place in a similar time as the Dusty Bernard thing, which seems to take place years and years in the future? Because I remember that the Forge was like pretty dilapidated when we went to that post-credit scene. And I don't know if it would be in that state of disrepair in season 3.
No, it definitely wouldn't. It would be neat if the Bernard post-credit scene and the post-credit scene in season 2 sync up timeline-wise.
Yeah. There's a chance that it might. But then if that's the case, then like, what's that version of William? Could there be a case where like that William ends up breaking out of the Forge and now you have a sort of like the afterlife soul version of William versus the soulless corporeal form of him? Just give Ed Harris more stuff to do. And I agree with you about the Bernard stuff as well. But like, yeah, it's weird because I do agree that like they landed the plane on that character, but the entire plane ride for that character has been so full of turbulence the entire season that like it almost doesn't make up with it for me.
Sure, yeah, no, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. So let's go on to Bernard's story here, and we'll save the meat and potatoes for the last half of this, but. So for Bernard, to your point, a lot of turbulence in his storyline this year, the plane ride. But what I kind of already shared what I thought of its conclusion in this episode, in that he has the key. It wasn't supposed to be a foil to Dolores. He was the one that was actually supposed to maybe take them to the promised land or whatever.
Well, it explains why Dolores kept him alive.
Right. Though I guess I never understood the whole like thing she told him at the end of last season, right? You're here to stop me in case things go too far. Because again, as we said, they never interacted. I don't know if that was like a line that she was feeding him or if it was more so symbolic of like, in case things go too far, like you have the Valley Beyond, you have the, what's it called? The Sublime. So like you're the failsafe almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that could be.
It turns out that's what it probably was.
Yeah, but that does make it a bit of a bait and switch on the whole Dolores storyline, of her kind of being the one that's going to bring about the end of the human civilization, but actually she's going to save it. And that kind of fits in with that as well, with Bernard's kind of twist there, that he isn't supposed to be the one going against Dolores. He's the one that's like the fail-safe in case Dolores gets deleted. In case the hard drive, if she breaks the hard drive or the hard drive crashes. And then you got Bernard just in case.
Well, and then the question is, so obviously he spent however much time like in the Valley Beyond. So I guess the question is like, could we see a possibility of like not only his time in there, but like Teddy, Aki, Akichita, Maeve's daughter, like some other characters. Like I wonder if Westworld could turn into, because now with the possibility of Evan Rachel Wood being done on the show, I wonder if this can turn into a show sort of like the Game of Thrones books are, not the show, but the books of like characters might just disappear for seasons at a time and then reappear. So like I would not be completely surprised to see like James Marsden show up for a couple episodes, as we see Bernard navigate what the Valley Beyond was and what he's supposed to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of cool storytelling techniques they could use with it. And, Clone Wars just wrapped up today, and it was amazing. But something I think Clone Wars is kind of cool from a storytelling perspective is they would focus on like story arcs, which was like 3 or 5 episodes on just like a certain subset of characters and just following a cohesive story. And I could see something like that in Westworld work really well, where you can just focus on a few characters, and then that's its own kind of story arc, and then you go follow a couple other characters, and maybe parts of those stories intertwine, much like the Game of Thrones books do, like you talked about, Mike. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways you could go about it, but I do look forward to however that's going to play out, even if it's going to be 10 years before we find out.
Do you think that, because we talked about, was it last week where they said, Bernard said to Stubbs, we may need him for something, William. Was it they were trying to protect William? Did maybe he knew Shaloris was was creating, because it never made sense.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy he says he's going to kill all of us, all the hosts. Yeah. Why are we keeping him alive? Was maybe the plan to keep William around because William maybe had they could have used him for something down the road, and they had to protect him from Shaloris?
No. Was it just like speaking towards Barnard's like naivete and like his general belief in humanity? Because I would say that as much as you want to talk up the Bernard storyline, I would say the conclusion of like the gas station standoff really did not pay off, in my opinion. So I'm glad we sort of got that out of the way at the beginning of the episode. So those characters could sort of move on with their own separate paths, which were both more interesting in their own right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah,
we all knew Stubbs was going to get shot, at least.
We knew that. And again, even like, I think it makes far more sense that Bernard just didn't know what he was doing and thought he might need him, but really he didn't need him.
But speaking of that, speaking of characters making a return appearance, Lawrence coming back for like a little cameo here with some explosives.
Yeah, exactly. That was fun. Are we going to theorize who the other person was in the mask that we didn't get to see?
Well, I'm trying to figure out, like, so obviously this was...
I forgot about that guy.
This was Dolores's doing, right? Because, like, I'd heard some stuff that, like, I think when we see like the Fight Club-esque ending of Caleb and Maeve hanging out, that those explosions might have been caused by whatever Lawrence was talking about with the fireworks, right? Because we don't see them again for the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, when did she do that? Or is that a Charlotte thing of having access to building hosts and was trying to help Bernard in that regard?
That's where I did think, okay, is this Dolores or Shaloris? I don't know, because was there like one left that we didn't know about, and that's Lawrence? But it seemed like, well, I guess she could have just hired humans like she did for all the other roles here. Also, rest in peace, Beast Mode.
Maybe, I don't know. Caleb said go back and help him. So like, I don't know. Wait, between that, we don't know if Sirach's dead. We might not know if Evan Rachel Wood's dead. So like,
I think Sirach is still alive because Maeve didn't double tap him. So
yeah, do you think it's one of those things of like, because we didn't see his death on screen, that means that he's alive?
Yeah.
We didn't see his head get cut off. It's a Highlander.
He's definitely injured,
decapitated.
Mm-hmm. And I guess he is sort of like, he's also like dismembered to a certain extent, right? Because like, we'll talk about this down the line, but we find out that like he has his own bicameral mind, that Rehoboam has been giving him all these instructions. Like now he's without that, insight has been shut down, like the system's been gutted. So he essentially is without like his guiding in life and the thing that he works tirelessly for. So it's almost like he's dead. He just
he might be the new Stubbs.
No, he might be the new William, where we just get a weird storyline for like a season and then he dies.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a thing where like Maeve puts him in cryo sleep or something along with his brother. Have them share the same little pod.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd be down with that.
Which, by the way, apparently I read something where you see in the first scene of the episode when like one of the late coming Delos people or Insight people check in on the power system. Apparently it was in reserve power. So unfortunately our big theory of all the outliers being thawed and wreaking havoc on the world was not seen this season, though it didn't really need to be seen considering how there was always stuff happening.
But there did seem like there was more people rioting.
Right. And then we discovered that that's partially because of Dolores.
Right.
which I thought was interesting. That like,
but there were just more people. I mean, it wasn't sparse. I mean, not sparse. What's one word I'm looking for? It wasn't. We've seen they're rioting. There's like 3 people over there spray painting the wall. And this was an actual riot. I mean, it was
finally had people in the streets where for a lot of this season. Like, I've never seen LA so empty.
The question is, again, was that Dolores is doing, because we find out that like in accessing Rehoboam, she sort of took, control of the Rico app and was now like paying off people to like, hey, helped, help carry Caleb to this destination, help reroute the protests. And that's where Marshawn Lynch and Ash sort of came into everything. So I can imagine that maybe it was just that she wanted this night to be like the night, and so causing a big distraction and overwhelming the police with hundreds and hundreds of extras. Like this was the night to do it. And
just like the Super Bowl against Patriots, Marshawn Lynch came up a yard short.
I was gonna say at least there was no forward pass,
No, he did though. He threw back one of the tear gas grenades that got thrown at him.
Yeah,
got him again. I think. Let's talk about Caleb's kind of journey here. Because it's kind of, we had this Pass Pawn episode last week, which was kind of cool, him ascending into, being Argus, promoted to a, queen, or, the person in charge, the leader. I was hoping we'd get more of a, Independence Day speech kind of thing. But he was still a little bit of reluctant hero, or the reluctant leader in this episode, and a lot of doubt and a lot of not truly believing in why he's there, why he's not there, even to the end, now that Maeve's kind of his guide. But what was your all's thoughts on kind of Caleb's conclusion in this episode, or finishing of a season 3 story arc?
Well, I'm glad he didn't have an Independence Day type speech, because it would have been out of character for him. At this point. He's not ready. He's not, he's not been a leader. He's been.
Yeah, I mean, to Jack's point, the very last thing we see in the last episode is, yes, while Aaron Paul does have this look of anger and determination on his face, he acts as this virtual assistant that says, "Hello, Caleb, here are your orders." So, like, even though he has this adamancy more so than he did before, he still is being directed. And the very first thing we see him do is go to one of these facilities and rebuild Dolores, which I thought was interesting as well. Obviously this seemed to be the big Dolores send-off episode. Make of that what you will. But I do love this image of, the final form that Dolores takes here is the first one that we saw chronologically, which is like the OG, Terminator metallic frame Dolores. It was very, gets symbolic of the whole full circle thing. But I feel like that's the thing, is that as much as she keeps saying you're going to be the leader, you're going to be the leader, maybe it's because she anticipated what was going to happen, that she would be out of the picture. But he didn't really seem to have to really carry out anything. I guess maybe when she sort of put him on his own path, he did. But, it really came down to the choice that, he had to make. And we get to see that. It's one of the reasons Dolores, we were wondering the entire time, like, did Dolores seek Caleb out, or was it just happenstance? And it looks like she really did seek him out, because he was in her past once upon a time.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a good guy, made the right decision.
Well, and what I do like that Westworld does kind of show is all human beings have, a series of choices. And no person's perfect. No person has made the right choice every single time, but this still is like the act of choosing. And I do like that the conclusion for him was, all right, they deserved the chance to make that choice and not have it made for them. And when given the power, and he was given the ultimate power, that's the choice that he made. Which I thought was nice. I thought it was a good story there. And now that he's kind of post the destruction of Rehoboam, and kind of Maeve's at his side, I'll be curious to see where his storyline goes in season 4. Now that if Dolores is truly gone, is he truly going to be the leader? And I would like to see, if it's a time jump or whatever, but kind of see. I'm excited to see where his story goes, because from the very beginning of the season, I really like the idea of introducing a human character as the leader of the revolution. Not even leader of the revolution at the time. I didn't think that, but just like having a human as part of the revolution. And then the fact that he became this pass pawn and became, or hopefully the presumptive leader of the revolution.
I think he has the qualities to grow into a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's a time jump, then, he seems to have made the right choices, in Dolores' eyes. So I think he has he'll be the leader.
Well, I think the question is, like, what does he need to be the leader of? Like, I wonder if it was really just be the leader for this one thing, which was to make the decision to shut down Rehoboam and to essentially release everybody from their cage. Because from there, theoretically, everybody can make their own choices. Like, they wouldn't need a leader. But I found it such a great twist to me, because really Dolores became the Ford in this situation, right? Like, she became, as much as she was shown as like this big leader, and really this big, like, variable, it turned out that she was more so the vessel to get someone to quote unquote wake up, and for them to sort of take control of their own actions. And that seems to be the plan the entire time. And they kept asking her throughout this episode, like, why this one guy, why this one man? Sirach tried to turn it back onto Caleb, again, really using his outsider status, his outlier status against him by being like, you have a capacity for violence, you're a sociopath. But it turns out that, Dolores remembered the kindness that he had and knew, like, if I can just get one person to wake up at this one portion of time, they can break the system like Arnold and Ford did with me. I mean, look at the havoc I caused in season 2 that got me to where I am now. And as a result, Caleb is the one to then break the chains of all of humanity.
Yeah.
Now, if Caleb's not the leader, is there any point on bringing back Aaron Paul? I mean, if he's not, what would be his role?
I guess the question is, like, what does the next season look like? If the next season is indeed Shaloris trying to indeed have, hosts take over the world, maybe you bring him in there. I mean, he is a very Johnny come lately to the host world, to the point where, like, he was still astounded in the beginning of the episode, like, what the hell are you, Dolores? He knows the term host, but it seems like he's been coming around to it. Though I guess we have found out that Caleb had more experience with hosts than we initially thought of. And you know what? I was reviewing my notes, and one thing I really like about this season is there were so many little things planted. And one of them was, like, seeing Caleb's friendship and kindness towards his coworker at the construction site, right? This robot that, like, just got thrown out by these other guys. Not only shows Caleb's kindness, but also shows the fact that, like, hey, he might have a soft spot in his heart for artificial technology, which connects back to when he was in the park once upon a time and stopped his fellow soldiers from making, some very lewd decisions.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
And at that point, he did show leadership qualities because they all listened to him. So,
well, yeah, and I think that's where a really nice, well fleshed out story arc for him in this season. And yeah, I think, again, I look forward to wherever they take him. I don't think it's going to be a one and done this season for Aaron Paul. I think, hopefully he's somebody that's there. And he's, honestly, to me, he was one of the most compelling characters in this season. So I would hope that his story would continue on after.
Yeah, and I loved the irony of the fact that, again, Sirach was trying to contain Dolores, right? Like, she's this big variable. She's going to cause everything. And the one thing to shut down and, create what he feared the most was not a host, but a human. And granted, it was a human that he was trying to curb with his program. But, he was looking so much at one particular thing that he didn't necessarily notice that, Dolores would pull a fast one on him, sort of like what she did before. She would die, but she'd still live on in the form of another person that would carry out her actions for her.
Yeah. And that's kind of the beauty of it, the pass pawn, right? It's like, it's this little piece you weren't thinking about. You're paying attention to all these other moves. You weren't paying attention to this one thing. And that's the thing that came up and actually bit you in the butt. And for, there's a lot of, when you're playing like really good chess players of the Sirach level quality, a lot of times they'll lose sight of the really simple, like, nonsense moves that, maybe some people wouldn't make. So I really liked that in terms of Sirach's downfall in this season.
Right. And I guess Sirach and Rehoboam as well, right? Since, again, like, now we can say that their motives were one and the same, which, again, like, says so much. It's a fun little twist on the character because, again, we thought he was so menacing, not realizing that he was merely, as Maeve says, a puppet for this larger entity. And even though it is, we're trying to really humanize this form of AI in the show, that this AI was working to almost subjugate humanity and trying to prevent what Dolores was trying to do was a really interesting perspective. And I think helped put Sirach's character in a lot of viewpoints as well. And again, he was human, but I guess he sort of wasn't, in that, like, he was not, if being human is making your own choices, Sirach has done none of that from what we saw in, like, the current timeline this season.
Yep.
He's basically a host. I mean, he was being dictated what.
So, I mean, I don't want to hang on to where Jack was wrong in that Sirach wasn't dead. He was just, had a little Bluetooth headset in there. But what did we think of the reveal of, Sirach? Because there was just these little clues that something was different or something had happened. And even last week, there was just like, I'm not the brother you last knew, or whatever. What did we think of that kind of reveal? That no, he just had like a a hotline.
Well, how do we know he wasn't a host and he was he was killed and just made he's like the man in black who killed William. We don't know. So
I want the reveal.
So we can't say I was wrong because we don't know for sure.
What about what we do know? So what do we think of what was revealed in this episode? I do really like that he ended up just being he wasn't the puppet master, he was the puppet. I really like that turn of events.
Yeah, it was a fun little turnaround because, again, we thought that he was like a big villain the entire time, and specifically that, like, he was the big bad representing humanity. But again, the irony that he was, he had somebody giving him directions the entire time, I think was also a great representation of, like, how deadly Rehoboam was. If the stuff from last episode wasn't an indicator of, like, everyone being put on their path and having their lives dictated by what this this algorithm is going to predict of what you want to do, the fact that its biggest mouthpiece and also, like, most actionable person is completely controlled by it, apparently, like, did not rebel against it whatsoever, is really, really scary. And I'm excited to eventually rewatch the season under the lens of a lot of things. One of them obviously being Dolores' true mission, and the other one being, like, watching Sirach and seeing, like, now that we know that essentially this is Rehoboam in a person, much like, in the season 2 finale, that the Forge was Logan in a person. What does that say? How do we know what Rehoboam is like now that we have it in the form of a person that isn't really necessarily acting like a person?
Yep. Yeah, and I would be curious on a rewatch to see how many clues were there. And again, I love the kind of interplay there where this season we thought it was going to be robots versus humans, and it was, but it was flipped, where it was really the kind of the lead was actually turned out to be a human, not Dolores, and then the counterpart was a computer that was using a human to basically execute different plans. So I think that was a really neat twist. I think it was a really neat kind of build up and kind of just showed all of the possible futures for our current society that we live in right now, which is getting more and more into algorithms and what's the dangers of that, where the ads can, like, know what you're thinking and put stuff out there. Like, there's been times
that is kind of scary.
Ad has shown up for it. That's happening now. Give it 30 years. Like, how much is that going to be an actual influence on your life? Because it's already happened. Like, even when you're applying for jobs, a lot of resume polling now is done by algorithms, by computers. Like, it's not done by humans anymore. So it's so, to me, when kind of dystopian future stuff gets it really right is when it really ties into present day really well. And so much of the season did. And to me, the Sirach twist was a great, kind of capping to the end of what they showed us in season 3 of Westworld.
And I think the one brief glimpse we got of Sirach the person was after, Rehoboam shut down. I thought was super interesting, where Sirach actually called Rehoboam brother. And so I think it also shows as well, like the impact that Jean-Mi had. Because I don't know. I know the same actor did the voice for Solomon last episode. I don't know if he did the same voice for Rehoboam as well, but I think that would be an interesting choice too. Of like, this is a guy who even posthumously is sort of dictating his brother's life, even though his brother tried to like, put him away for a little bit. That voice is still in his head, which is always fun, right? Because that connects back to the bicameral mind from season 1 of Dolores hearing Arnold's voice until she was able to hear her own and theoretically make her own decisions.
Yep, exactly. Jack, any thoughts for you? I mean, I know you kind of like did your whole shtick about saying it could still be true, but like, what's your feeling?
Well, I was reading the chat. Eckhart made a good point. You could still argue that the brother is indirectly controlling Sirach via Rehoboam. Oh, I didn't. Wow, that was pretty cool. Since the brother is the main coder behind Rehoboam, so I guess I was technically right. So. It's not about being right or wrong.
That's not what Eckhart said. What are you talking about?
Yeah, since the brother was the main coder, but then that was my theory that the brother was controlling Sirach.
How did we get from Sirach is definitely dead to that?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, someone asked, Eckhart made a better point than I did. So.
Anyway, all right, let's go on here. Let's go to Maeve's storyline. There's a lot.
Can we just say this? What took Maeve so long to wake up?
Yeah,
I think we were saying it all season. Like, okay, when is she going to actually join Dolores' side here? Or there has to be a turn or something like that. And
it took her until like the 11th hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Sirach never gave, in my opinion, her a reason to believe him.
I agree. It was weird. She's like in this episode, right? She told Dolores like, he guaranteed like, or he said, I think she told Caleb like, she gave me the opportunity to see my daughter. I will someday. It won't be today. But then like in a previous episode, she told Dolores like, I don't care about seeing my daughter at this point. Like that's not what. So I'm just. Tandy Newton gave an interview where she was admittedly, I think, a little, I'm going to say dissaddened, but I guess she admitted that Maeve's path in seasons 2 and 3 were a little aimless compared to season 1. Yeah. And I would kind of agree. And maybe, again, a rewatch will help sort of focus in on what her motives are. But and I guess from that perspective, knowing that, considering what Dolores was actually trying to do and knowing that Sirach was officially like the capital B big bad, it just further confuses me as to like how Maeve did not have the judgment to know that and to like, unless this was the plan the entire time. It's unfortunate
because Maeve was smart, intelligent. How did she not figure out? The whole season never made sense to me. I know we talked about it a lot. That so why is she? What? When Dolores reaches out to her, who are you going to trust, Dolores or this madman? Yeah, who's being controlled by his brother allegedly. So
and especially because again, like so smart, so cunning. Really, up until this season, where it's just like, what are you doing? I was like, when are you going to turn? And then it finally happened after like Dolores is essentially dead. I'm like, oh, well, thanks. Now you're on the good side, I guess. But like, and then the whole button controller thing, I was like, wait, you could have done that the whole time. Just why didn't you do that? Like, I don't know, 10 episodes?
Maybe she didn't realize till that point that she could do it.
Maybe she never Speed Force thing where like she really needed like Dolores's encouragement to break through that final barrier.
Well, at that point, she needed to do it to survive, right? She had to do it, so maybe she just. I'm trying to help. I'm just trying to help them out here, because if she doesn't destroy it, she's dead, right? So maybe she really. Oh, I got this. This one thing I got in my sleep. Oh, it works.
Last time, the first episode he did it, or the second episode, I think.
He did it. He did it in this episode, and then she was just able to like, actually,
I can break it off my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe it was just like an emotional overdrive type of thing where like she felt so angrily betrayed by this guy, whereas the first time, like she was just very confused. She just met him, And so this time, like, her rage from Dolores has been channeled, and so she just goes bananas, turns off the lights for a second, slices everybody up, like mortally wounds Serac. What did you think of Maeve versus Dolores Part 2 after, what we saw last week?
Well, it was great until Shalora showed up and like basically.
Well, they had to figure out a way for Dolores, because Dolores was obviously superior to Maeve. And even when Dolores let Maeve live, she could easily have killed her at that point. Maeve still didn't go. Okay.
And Matt Treese, I think, has a good opinion I'm going to mention. This season felt like there was no second act. They spent so much time introducing everything, and by the time they were done, it was time to get to the end.
That's a good point. Because I think even up to the last episode, right? Like we were still finding things out about the characters, specifically someone like Caleb. And so this episode, while it was extended, it did feel like we had a lot to do. And as a result, while some storylines like the Dolores and Caleb and Serac stuff was really, really well done and patched up really nicely, then you get like your William, Bernard, and Maeve storylines, on the other hand, that felt a bit more slipshod when you look back at the smaller moments throughout the season.
Absolutely.
Do you think it could be because Jeffrey Wright is, he's in demand right now, maybe doesn't have the time to work on Westworld as much as I'm just throwing it out there because it didn't see.
Because he's in every episode almost.
But it's not. They're not, except for that one episode. There's not a lot of his character, right?
I bet they wrote it for him. He would be there. I don't know if it's like a hit. They're all relatively in demand. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's that. I just feel like
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm trying to help the writers.
I mean, I could just see a thing of like, I think they clearly had some character beats plotted out for like Dolores in particular, and maybe it was a matter of like figuring out where the other characters fit in there, and I think some just fit in a bit stronger than others.
Yeah, because I think that's more it than anything, and I think trying to put it into 8 episodes, and this was the first time they wrote for 8 episodes, I feel like there was this element of they did a really, to me, like up to the reveal of, they're all Dolores, I thought was just, I really liked everything up to that point. And then there's just like, okay, we're still getting stuff done. We're still figuring out, I think we still got like the Caleb backstory episode 6, 7. And then we have the final episode. So there's no, you had to spend so much time bringing in these new characters like Kate Serac. That just wasn't time in 8 episodes.
They had to do that because maybe they knew they were getting rid of Dolores, William. Technically William's still there, but Dolores could be gone. So you don't want to start season 4 with character. And it looked like at the end Bernard, because Bernard's look was, when he wakes up, is more sinister than.
Oh, you think he's gone bad? He's broke bad?
I don't know. His look wasn't like, hey, I'm awake. It was like, hey, Stubbs is over there dead. He had a very, to me, a sinister look. So maybe, because people were complaining all season. I know you guys were, that we need more Bernard. And I think season 4 will probably have more Bernard.
Or at least I would say more driven Bernard. Like the look that I got from him wasn't necessarily like, oh, now it's time to take over the world. I think it's more so like, I know my mission at this point, which we'll find out what the mission is. But I think that's a good point, Jack, that I think as aimless as Bernard is, which is understandable this season, right? Because he has been put into this body in a world that he is not familiar with. So he's just sort of like wandering around aimlessly trying to figure out what the hell his mission is. Now he's finally going to find it. And that should be very interesting for the character. I have no idea where Maeve goes from here.
I don't know if they need her.
I mean, they're gonna bring her in, right? Because Tandy Newton is like one of the big anchors.
Oh, she's a fantastic actress, but the way it ended is like, okay, she kind of had her way out. I mean, it was
she didn't like. So that's where I feel like she has to be back, because I feel like it would be a disservice to the character if this is basically. So to me, she's like now the bodyguard, so to speak, or the one that's going to be the muscle.
Especially if she's facing down Dolores, and again, now that she like has her powers in the real world, if you're looking for somebody who like, who's somebody who can mentally futz with hosts to possibly stop them from taking over the world.
Yeah.
Now that, Maeve was able to listen to Rehoboam this episode, it seems like the sky's the limit for what she's capable of doing.
But is Maeve a bodyguard or is Maeve a leader?
Co-leader? Co-manager.
Assistant to the regional manager.
Assistant regional manager.
Yeah, I don't see Maeve being just the bodyguard. That wouldn't be justice for her character.
Could you see something where like she blends into the background now, like she is now a host masquerading as a human? I mean, they end with that beautiful shot, and obviously one of her more famous lines. This is the new world. In the new world, you can be whoever the F you want. Who does Maeve want to be in this new world? Like, I guess this is a new world for her. As much as she sort of has been dragged out of wherever she was by Serac to sort of fulfill this purpose, she's now matured beyond that. And now she has, like, much like the humans have been freed, so is she.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really look forward to see kind of what path she chooses. And, with her powers, I think she's an essential component to what happens after, or what happens in the future seasons.
Yeah, and from that perspective, like, it's exciting. It just makes me, and maybe season 4 will help recontextualize season 3 as well, because again, it seemed like she did not have the best sense of judgment, which is fine. Characters can be fallible, but it seemed like Maeve was built out so super powerful and so super interesting in season 1 and arguably in parts of season 2 that like it just didn't feel right for season 3. And Tandy Newton was doing her best and she was kicking ass, using that katana this episode in particular and getting to exact her revenge. I'm just trying to really wrap my head around what was her intentions. What did Serac offer her that really made her want to stick to her guns so much?
Exactly. Because like you finally had like her child's in safety, right? It's in the Great Beyond, and that was kind of the conclusion of season 2. And to me, like that drive, like there wasn't anything there that matched that drive anymore. And
for her to go after Dolores that way.
No, exactly. Like to me, it made more sense to support Dolores to make sure your daughter's safe in the Great Beyond. So,
yeah.
I'm gonna put this one up here from Sasha. Can't someone just print out a new Maeve daughter and give her some relief?
That's the thing, is that all her. I mean, if Bernard wants to go into the Valley Beyond, right? Because I think the thing is that like all the host data, anyone who went into the Valley Beyond is like there's no backup data. That all got destroyed. So like if someone wants to do it, or if someone wants to just find a random girl and convince Maeve that it's her daughter, good luck.
Yeah.
Did Maeve want the key that Bernard had? I mean, that she thought Dolores had? Maybe that was. Really? I'm just trying. I'm grasping.
Yeah, it's just weird because again, there were moments where she was very adamant of like, no, I'm not just doing it because my daughter could possibly be in trouble.
Yeah.
Like she specifically said, like, Serac is offering help. And so it seemed like there was a larger purpose behind it. Again, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Because Serac to me wasn't that convincing as far as.
Yeah. I mean, again, when the Maeve's like, you weren't actually going to do it, were you? Like, duh. Of course not. Like he never seemed like a genuine person.
No, because he killed people in front of her, and I just never saw. I don't know.
And where I kind of like had hope was the extra scene or a featurette at the end of last week's episode. Lisa Joy said like, how many times have like two powerful women been pitted against each other by some male overlord or something, and that's not going to happen forever. But at the end, like this whole like revelation for her just wasn't compelling enough to kind of justify Maeve and Dolores being pitted against each other. And better to me, I think, if Maeve had her own motivations and her own drive to kind of go against Dolores versus her kind of being Serac's toady and then just trying to do the bidding for somebody else. Like that to me wasn't as compelling for a character like Maeve, which is so powerful and so badass. Like to me, just being the sidekick or just the muscle for Sirach was just kind of like, I think to your point, Jack, like it wouldn't befit that character if she was the bodyguard going for Caleb for this season. Her being basically the muscle to try and take out Dolores for Sirach is just not good for that character.
No.
That being said, I thought the scene between her and Dolores was beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that as much as we were like, yeah, let's finally have them face off, just having the two of them like talk to one another, or even like the flashback to one of the loops where Dolores and Maeve are looking across at each other from different sides of the riverbank was like just a really, really well done scene. Yeah. And I guess if we're segueing to Dolores, like I'll put on my hot take now. I really hope this is like the end of Evan Rachel Wood, just because I thought this was like a fantastic send-off for the Dolores character, and bringing her back would just feel weird. I mean, unless we're doing like, you know, a Shalores type of thing of like, this is Dolores's essence, but it really is imbued with another type of character. Like, this feels like a fantastic ending to this character who got what she wanted. She came full circle, being the one who was activated, going to activating somebody else. Yep. You know, as much as we might think that she wanted to take arms against the ugliness of humanity, she more so wanted them to discover their own kindness. Like, I just thought it was a cool way to call back to the rancher's daughter that we saw in the very first episode, to the point where the very first shot in the previously on was the last shot of the pilot of her smacking the fly. That was like one of a great callback to like all the roles that she's played throughout not only Westworld the show, but her life as a character.
Yep, exactly. And that like I so much I think you called out about her going back to her original form with the kind of the old school Westworld body, and how, you know, they made them weak. We were really strong in the beginning with the whole like the sword, the katana sword just getting stuck in her arm was really
Maeve's like, what?
And again, it's just like, oh, there's Shalores screwing things up. Boo. And Dolores's ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate play to kind of give the keys of the kingdom to Caleb, and then having that moment with Maeve where, you know, it kind of showing Maeve the light and what she was really trying to do, and then also setting up for Bernard and I'm blanking on his ex-wife, or Arnold's ex-wife's name.
Lauren, I think
it was Lauren. I think that was a really beautiful scene. So like so much of Dolores's kind of conclusion, I thought was really moving, really compelling, and it was really beautiful. Where it had that, you know, there's a beauty in this world, and
well,
especially
it's her favorite place too, because she kind of mentioned it the week before when she was in Mexico with Caleb.
That's the thing, is that, you know, it's so interesting that they specifically tortured Dolores by dismantling her memories, considering that how did she come into who she is now is because she had the reveries, right? She had memories that made her remember like her true reality. Now they're sort of taking her apart, so she is sort of dying in a sense. But yeah, and I loved going back there because like that is the place where she woke up, and that's the place that she remembers the most. You know, the ones that she's left in this final sprint are the happy memories, and the times where, yes, it was an ugly world that even she lived in the park, but there were still kindness in it. And I also liked the pairing of the first monologue she gives at the beginning of the episode, which is like the perverted turn, right? Like the, you know, I looked in this world, you know, that has ugliness in it, and I saw the beauty, but also I realized how little beauty there was. Yeah. Now we turned it back at the end of the episode of like, maybe that was Dolores putting up a front or coming across in that regard. But now she's like telling Maeve essentially, you know, these are my words, take it and go. And I just think, you know, the way she disappeared from the memories as well was really nice. And even just going back through my notes for season 3, there were so many. I'll go back to the very first scene we saw in episode 1 where, you know, there's that mogul guy who's like, you know, in this heavily fortified house, and then Dolores breaks in and he dies because he tries to kill her. She's a hologram. He falls into the pool. So his wife comes out and asks, "Who are you?" And Dolores says, "The person who set you free." And I feel like that's one of those things where, like, in retrospect, you're like, how did I not realialize that? You know, like that was her goal the entire time.
Yeah.
Well, it was the misdirection they had the whole time, where they kept saying, she's in the world, in the world.
But I think what Mike's saying here is like right there, right in the beginning.
Well, it was there. It was there the whole time. Yeah. We just didn't.
But that's the thing as well, is that, like, I think this was talked about in the featurette of, like, when you change already established systems, like, I mean, Dolores says it in this episode, right? Like, change is messy, change is dirty, but, like, change can also be for the better. And so it's one of those things where, like, it did seem like Sirach was really perpetuating this thing of, like, we should be afraid of change. Like, let's not change the status quo. But Dolores is really saying, like, yeah, this is going to be nasty, but this is what you need as a society if you no longer want to be sort of imprisoned by this overarching technology.
Right.
All right. Any final thoughts on this episode before we hear what our listeners had to say?
I did like when Dolores told Maeve that you're all a copy of me.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
That was cool. That was cool.
Because I think that also means that's also a great symbol, right? Of, like, even though Dolores is gone, her message is certainly not forgotten. She sort of lives on in every host, even if Dolores is creating the hosts. Like, her essence is gonna live on with everybody who follows her. So even though Evan and Rachel Wood might not be back, and I believe that the creators confirmed, like, this version of Dolores is officially gone, her spirit is still going to live on, much like the spirit of Ford has lived on after his death. Which is a cool idea, because, again, that was end of season 2, right? Dolores said, like, we're as alive as people remember us to be. And so that's the thing with Dolores here. She became like a ghost in the machine in a way. She became the very thing that brought her to life, and now she's going to be the thing that brings others to life, and she's the thing that's going to keep it on, even though she's not there.
Correct. Yeah, I think, and even Lauren had that too, where it's just like it was. I had to go and continue living because that's what kept the memory of my son alive. That's what kept him alive. Even though he passed away. So, which is a theme that's been kind of repeated over and over again. So, yeah, awesome. All right. Well, that is what we thought about this episode. Now it's time to get into what you all thought about it with
everybody.
Feedback. Well, before we get into that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. For those that are live right now, this is the actual commercial break. It's where I save the episode up to this point.
That information was more exciting than the episode.
So one of the tricks of the trade of Jay and Jack Podcast Network is editing as I go along to save time on the production. So.
Very smart, especially when we're doing these late night ones.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's a lot of work. I have to put in this editing stuff. So,
no, we see how you edit. Don't go anywhere. Feedback music. It's just really riveting stuff right now for our All right, Colleen, if you're still watching, commercials at 1 hour and 1 minute.
She did say I'm going to have to cut all this part out. LOL.
At least she knows now in the moment.
Exactly.
You made her job easier.
Gentlemen, are you ready?
Let's do it.
No, Colleen, you don't have to cut this part out. You're fine. All right, it's listener feedback time. Time to hear what you all thought about this episode. And we have a metric ton of emails. First email, I'm going to actually do one from last week. And this one is from our dear friend, Shandy. Hey, guys, I'm finally catching up after being a few episodes behind. One quick thought on episode 7. Why would Sirach have left a holographic message for his brother in English? Obviously would have spoken to his brother in French. Is it really too much to ask for the audience to read subtitles for 2 seconds? Small thing, but the incongruence annoys me. Sad I won't be watching episode 8 with you all in Raleigh. Thank you, Shandy.
Could there be like maybe I've been watching too much Star Trek, but like a universal translator thing where maybe it was in French and like they just heard it in English because it's their natural tongue?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Mike on that one.
Our Shandy will appreciate this. Our Disney Plus, for some reason on the Apple TV, keeps changing the language to French.
Oh, that's fun.
I change it each episode, and it's not in settings, and I don't know why it's doing it. But anyway, so
it's possessed by Ciroc.
Yeah, for Shandy, Disney Plus is making me listen to French, the French language for everything that I'm watching. So.
I like Jack's idea that like you're gonna pop it on and like Ciroc's just gonna show up in the screen and like give you a greeting, like you stumbled upon like this is what Rehoboam actually is.
Yeah, it was all real.
And Shandy, it was sad we didn't have our podcast get together weekend this weekend. I think we've moved it to September sometime. We did do a lot of fun like Zoom meetups this weekend though, which was a good time. All right. Next up is Sasha Flick, who's in the audience right now. So you get to read. Hopefully, I read your email as well as you write it. So, hey, Jack and Mike, it's Sasha. I have to say, I found this episode simultaneously heart-pounding and confounding, intriguing and beguiling, heartfelt and cold, and altogether an apocalyptic buffet of badassery. Perhaps, as has been suggested before by you trio, there might have been an original intent for more episodes in this season. I think this episode makes it clear that there was probably supposed to be at least 9, maybe even 10 episodes. There's just so much crammed into this one. Note, I have watched this finale twice, but I have still found some storylines a tad confusing and hole-ridden. But I nonetheless enjoyed every minute of it. So climb aboard the Hot Take Express. Here we go. Huge kudos to the stunt and fight coordinators on this episode. All of the action and fight sequences were incredible.
Yeah, the Dolores taking on all the guards right outside of Insight was so well done.
Yes.
So we didn't even mention we thought she was finally captured. She takes the gun and blows her foot off. That was.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like she was just full on like killing guys point blank. She uses one to shield her body as they fall into a car.
Yeah, shoots them on the way down though too. That's cool.
And shout out to my sisters and brothers in the VFX on this episode and all season. This episode was incredibly well done. I guess Sasha is in the visual effects field, so
that's awesome. Yeah, and that I would say I guess it's everywhere, but I would say that watching watching Evan Rachel Wood do the like original Dolores body for longer than like 30 seconds that we're used to was like it was cool to see it in a scene to the point when she was like pulling on her own hand like a glove.
Yeah,
it was a really cool effect.
Right.
Yep, indeed. At the shootout at the old-timey garage, if El Lazo Lawrence is another Dolores copy, and she is asking Bernard to go find the real Dolores, was that then an early signaling of the Dolori being independent, like what Charlotte evolves into later?
Well, so I thought that the address that Bernard was given was to Lauren, not to Dolores.
Correct.
But Bernard thought it was to Dolores.
Correct.
So yeah, so maybe, I mean, either it's working towards a bigger plan or it could just be that he was directed by somebody else. Maybe it was Ford. Who knows? Ford knows Arnold. Could this have been Ford's spirit talking from some sort of beyond the grave voice to give Lawrence the direction to like, hey, have him sort of reconcile his feelings so he can move on, go into the valley beyond and carry out this mission.
Never thought about that.
It'd be cool if it was revealed, but it might not reveal it in this episode. Maybe Anthony Hopkins was busy or something. But I'm confused about the gent Sebastian who finds Dolores post EMP. Is this the same guy who worked for Ciroc later in the episode? I believe it is. That's just me saying that. Help me on this, or am I really badly confusing the actors? Like later, the fight between Caleb and Sebastian is truly confounding. This looks like the same guy that presumably packed up Dolores in some kind of Ziploc coffin for Caleb to find. I really don't get it. This is the biggest problem for me, unless they're trying to show he was a double agent somehow. But why? Again, might be confusing the actors. But in that case, the director needed to change your beard.
It was the same guy.
Was it? I thought it could have easily have been like the generic, slicked back bearded security guy that we've seen many, many times.
I thought it was the same guy. I have to go back and watch it.
I thought it was the same guy, but I could be confused because they were pretty generic, bearded security guard guys.
You know, people with a beard.
We're very serious. Yeah, it's hard to tell us apart. But no, I think that wasn't the same Dolores that he packed. I don't know. It is true. There's too many.
Well, remember that the facility that Maeve visited, like, has the host goo, like it has all the capabilities to construct hosts. So I don't know if they went all the way there or if they were able to get materials from there, but that sort of is where they were able to bring everything. So this was not like the OG Dolores body. This was just like a very simply constructed metal skeleton from that facility.
Yeah. Okay. The revelation, how does Dolores not know that Charlotte is still alive? I do, however, love the newly reborn Charlotte, badass as ever, and a true HBIC, is once again going to usurp her boss and do it her way.
Well, didn't Bernard know that there was something wrong with Dolores?
What do you mean?
I thought he said he felt there was something.
He sort of had his Obi-Wan moment, like like he felt like Dolores's life was snuffed out.
Yeah, there was a disturbance in the Force.
Now that I think about it, I actually, going back to the Bernard, I believe that Lawrence was given that same case by like the Musashi from last episode. So maybe it was Dolores wanted him to jump into the Valley Beyond to sort of, again, continue her work, which again shows how she lives beyond the grave.
Correct. Let's see. The revelation that all hosts are built from Dolores, of course, makes sense in hindsight and is a smart way to handle her exit. She's never really gone.
Exactly.
Dolores sending Bernard Arnold to see his old wife to get closure is a clear example of one of the acts of human kindness that Dolores reveres, and so she gave Bernard that gift. This scene between Bernard and Lauren is the most beautiful in the whole finale, in my opinion. I would agree. It also helps bring us full circle on the season regarding dementia and the ties between Caleb and Bernard and living in their truth.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, that was one of our first big motivators, right? Jack, your theory that Caleb was a host because his mom didn't recognize him, but it turns out it's more so about this idea of memory and, living with your memory, losing your memory, being stripped of your memory.
Yeah. Let me play the role of Jack here. Well, we didn't see that it wasn't actually.
No, I never denied that. So move on.
You never saw it. Something I noticed. Oh, sorry. I don't know why, but in Westworld, there's a lot of escalator acting required. It's a good call out. Escalator every season. Something I noticed that may just be a coincidence during the post-credit scene when William arrives at the reception. That's a weird cactus-like plant on the desk in the reception counter. This looks just like a smaller size of the two cactus large plants that were in the hallway. Shit out much early in the episode between Dolores and all the goons. It's either a really sharp visual callback or something else, but I think it's intentional. Also brings to mind the Southwest setting of Westworld and cacti. I didn't.
I didn't even see it.
The battle between the two Williams at the end is a perfect culmination of all the fears the real William was feeling early in the season. I think deep down somewhere he knew he would be replaced with a host William, and it was literally driving him crazy. William finally manages to crawl his way out of insane, only to be confronted with his literal fear coming true, beating the hell out of him and killing him. Thanks again so much for all you do, and a great season. Sasha, P.S. Rest in peace, Ethan. I guess that gives William's story a little bit more context.
That's interesting. If he always knew that like he'd inevitably be replaced, and so he's just like, that's one other thing that's driving him crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess, he is someone who used this technology on James Delos, right? So you have to assume that like he's going to be susceptible to it at some point as well, unless he feels like he can defy it.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. I do like the idea. I think was it you, Mike, that came up with it of the soul of William combating this evil Man in Black William or something. I don't know.
Like the reanimated soul of William that we saw in the season 2 post credits.
Exactly.
Combating the soulless Man in Black that we saw in the season 3 post credits.
I don't see William doing that.
Give Ed Harris twice as much to do next season.
Exactly. exactly.
Well, even though he did have like 3 of him in a room at one point this season.
You can't go wrong with more Ed Harris, but I just don't see William being he's move on.
It'll make Eckhart happy. Anyway, happy. Happy
boy.
This next one is from not Ethan, so don't worry, Ethan. We have to wait another 2 years before I read your email. It's happening right now. Dear friends, Jack, not Jack, and Mitch, and to all the many Ethans and slight variations of Ethan, may the 4th be with you all. Now that we have come to the end of the season, my consciousness has been merged with Rehoboam, and you won't hear from me until season 4 of Westworld, pending 2027. Yes, I will indulge a quick history lesson previously on emails from non-Ethan. Once upon a time, back when the Lost Rewatch podcast produced new episodes, and we were together enjoying Leftover Season 2, Jack had a mortal enemy. His name was Ethan. It was from that bond that Einstein's theory of duplicates emerged and sprang forth the twin, not Ethan, to be a foil to Ethan and an ally to Jack. This proved very effective for a long while. However, sometime in the past 3 years, while Westworld was off the air, Jack went and became friends with Ethan without my knowledge. So much so that they now apparently do their own separate podcast together. Naturally, not Ethan knew nothing about this, and have been in a tailspin ever since. As not Jack actually seems to be the more antagonistic to Ethan these days than Jack himself. For whom shall a non-Ethan toll? Where do we go from here? I believe we all have a choice. Is Jack going to remain true to himself, only to get his throat slit by a robot version of himself in the near future? For the record, Jack, I never said that William was a good guy by any stretch. I simply resisted the tidy box of labeling William as pure evil while the other characters were allowed to live in shades of gray. Anywho, as a series of emails from not Ethan come to an end until season 4 greets us in the days of COVID-27, I will aid my dear old friend and ally Jack one last time by giving him a crackpot theory to end all crackpot theories.
Ooh. All right, I can't wait for this.
Here goes it. Sometime soon, probably not season 4, maybe season 5, the consequences of this season's actions will become so extreme, the real world will have torn itself apart to dust, and the setting will become practically post-apocalyptic in nature, and thus the end of Westworld will bring us back to our roots. But not to the park. Instead, the real world will become a place very much resembling the original park, and that brave land of future Westworld is where we all will make our final stands. Until then, my fellow Jedi spirits, live long and namaste. The original wrench in the system, not Ethan.
Nice. Well, yeah, he brings up an interesting point, though, because I mean, when asked Rehoboam, like, if we go off of Solomon's strategy, what's going to happen? It said mass culling, population culling, like 6 to 10 years from now, 10 to 12 to 16 years from now,
all right,
and then human extinction. I think, like they said, like 50 to 125 years from now. I guess the big question is, was that path diverted with what Caleb did? And I guess that I think that's going to be like, I would say that's probably going to be the main question for the rest of the series, maybe.
Or is that what happened when we see Bernard wake up?
Yeah, exactly. Like, could this have been after humans are extinct and now the Earth really is populated by hosts and they have to rebuild it? And what does that society look like?
Yeah. I mean, that could be the direction they go.
That'd be crazy if they flash forward another like 50 years.
That's season 6, the zombie season.
I mean, we begin to like the 2100s by then.
Yeah. Yep. It's true. It's true. Not Ethan. Thank you for your emails. In a world in which Jack is a traitor to this podcast. All right. Next up is an email from one of those traitors, Eckhart Richter. Dear Jack and Mike,
turn up strong.
By the way, I wouldn't even accept an invite to your podcast. All right, I heard your little comment at the end of your last episode. BT. Thank you for another great season of covering Westworld. Looking forward to hearing both of your insightful comments and theories when season 4 airs. Ed Harris was amazing. We should all work hard to improve our cursing, that we might one day reach 1/10 the level of the skill he displayed in more hotel lobby foul mouthing. Eckhart.
Yeah, hard to argue with it, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, listen, anyone who values my opinions is probably a misguided individual, but I'm gonna, cherish the moment nonetheless.
All right, moving on to better emails. This one from Toronto. I want to express my appreciation for how graciously you all agreed to disagree with me last week. This is why you are the best Westworld podcast. You always keep it classy. Oh, thank you, Charmaine. We are the best.
Was that it?
Featuring Eckhart. You persuade me that I am focusing on what's missing at the expense of seeing what's there. So I had this idea. There would be a great big reveal in this final episode, and it would all make sense. Some thought it was about Caleb not being Caleb. He's Sirach's brother. He's Rehoboam in human form. Some thought it would be about Sirach being part of a simulation, a constellation of simulations. Everyone was wrong. It's just that Dolores knew Caleb from a training exercise back at the park. Oh, and hosts can have visual hallucinations. That was kind of interesting. Is it me? Am I just this hard to impress? The best moment of that finale was Sirach yelling for her Rehoboam like it was misbehaving Alexa, which is kind of which is kind of weird because does a puppet yell at a puppeteer? Second best, Stubbs in his happy place motel room with access to booze. I suppose if we consider the worlds in chaos, more hosts are being manufactured. Bernard opened a file that has turned him into something undetermined at some undetermined far future date. Then maybe season 4 could be an interesting pivot. What does the world look like in year 2100? After the nuclear holocaust that has covered Bernard in dust, will we see the post-human planet predicted by Rehoboam? I think that up to the credits, they were giving us a series finale. I don't hold out much hope that people remember enough or care enough to tune into season 4 in 2022. So I need you to tell me what you're podcasting about next, because I would miss you guys.
Oh,
Charmaine from Toronto. Season 4 of Stranger Things would be our next thing.
Right, but I don't know if I think they were filming stuff earlier this year. I don't know if they finished. So I think the unfortunate thing, Charmaine, is that a lot of stuff is in limbo.
Yes.
Given what happened.
They put out some teasers, but I don't know if they finished or not yet, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah. You can look it up. But
it's supposed to premiere. I forget when it was supposed to premiere. Was it 2021 or?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Anyway.
Yeah, lots on hold, that's for sure.
Well, it'll be the marble races with Jay, Jack, and Mike. That'll be our next podcast.
That is addicting to watch. I'm sorry.
You're talking
about the marbles in the sand?
Yeah, that's all.
I watched it like 3 times. I watched it like 3 times.
The other ones I really like are the Matchbox cars with the GoPro on it, and they run it through the track. I really like those.
Ooh, that's fun.
Anyway, thank you, Charmaine. Listen, I think we've talked about it on this episode. There's storylines that just didn't nail this season. Whether that was they didn't have enough episodes to do it, or they just spent too much time focusing on other characters. But I thought Dolores' storyline was really good. Caleb's storyline was really good. I thought Sirach's storyline was really good. But I do agree. It was an imperfect season, which started really strong. Thought, but they couldn't quite stick the landing.
I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed the season.
That being said, how would you rank the seasons? Would you go 1, 2, 3?
I think so.
I go 1, 3, 2.
I'm between the two, just because I would not say that season 2 was not without fault.
No,
as well.
1 is clearly the best. I mean, it's not even.
But we're some really not great stuff, but then it had these amazing.
Right, I would say 2 is more uneven.
Yeah,
where 3 definitely had some some paths that might not have been as fulfilling, but it definitely felt more compact and concise, which I think is what we're talking about here, which sort of as a double-edged sword, double-edged katana, in that, like, because they were able to keep things super tight, there were some things that didn't make sense in retrospect. Two, just maybe it's because it was purposely meant to confuse us with the multiple timelines.
Yeah.
Unless you rewatch it, like, it just felt so disjointed and almost confusing for the sake of confusing. Like you said, Jay, there was still some really, really great stuff in there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's really, I agree. It's one, and then it's really pick your battle between 2 or 3 for those last 2 spots.
Yep. So the audience, Eckhart says 132. Sasha says 132. Matt says season 2 was junk. Randy says 1, 2, 3. And Eckhart gives a little more context. 2 is too disjointed. Also has a lot of unnecessary shooting scenes. But I think there's no wrong answers. Just like your favorite Star Wars movie, unless you put Rise of Skywalker into one.
I was gonna say, like, according to you, there is a wrong answer. So
yeah, just that one. But other than that, there's no wrong answers.
Rise of Skywalker is my favorite.
Have you watched it?
Mm-hmm.
When did you watch it?
I've seen it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah. What, do you want me to spoil everybody?
Uh-huh.
You're talking about the latest Star Wars?
The one that just came out.
Yeah, your mom and I went and watched it.
Oh, that's right, you did. I'm sorry, I forgot.
I love being called a liar. When I'm telling, why would I lie? Why is there a reason for me to lie?
I was wrong.
I saw them all in the theater. So,
anywho.
Season, by the way, Stranger Things season 4. Production of the 4th season began in February 2020, with the season expected to be released during the 2020 to 2021 television season. However, production of the series was halted due to the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020, leaving its release date in limbo.
Yeah, that's once you said February 2020, I was like, nope.
So that's going to be, if they, because we're dealing with a lot, the main characters are kid actors who are growing. How are they going to, so they've stopped production, about 2 or 3 months ago?
Mm-hmm.
So it might not come back for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Especially if they're filming in the winter.
Yeah. So how do they, I mean, it's like you got kids that are 14, suddenly they're 19. How they're going to look different is what I'm trying to say. Is how are you going to explain that?
I mean, they can obviously do a jump forward in time. I think that's a little easier. I mean, I can imagine that's maybe one reason why they're doing that with Westworld too, right?
They could be filming out of order though. They could be filming, right? I mean, they don't have to film it episode 1, 2. I mean, I don't know the different scenes and how production works, but I don't know. It just seems like it could be a problem.
Yeah, I think I don't know, all productions, unless they were already wrapped up and done and ready to release in 2020, are not. We're gonna have to wait.
We'll see. But if it picks back up, we'll be there.
CGI actors. Everything's CGI.
Well, then you need artists too, and they need really expensive big computers that probably aren't in their houses.
Well, they can just put them in their house and stuff like that. Just big deal.
Anyway, all right. One last email for this season, and it's fitting that this last email is from Ethan.
Ooh, he made it under the wire.
And it was more than one sentence. So thank you, Ethan, for time. Jay, Jack, and Mike. Wow, just imagine what the world was like just 8 short weeks ago. It's really been crazy thinking about what the actual world has been through since Westworld started. I know we have fun on this show, but I did want to thank Jack for the opportunity of doing coverage on Crazy Hank. While we all know it was just a way for him to get his theories for this show.
I'm not going to lie. That could be possible.
I've watched it. I don't want to say the other 2 hosts carry it for you, Jack, but I'm just saying.
I'm offensive. I just sit there and
I really enjoyed this season. I even got choked up once or twice during the finale. This year we saw Dolores go from gun crazy Wyatt to the awesome Neo Trinity combo we were all expecting her to be. I'm sure it has been discussed, but this season will only rise, in my opinion, if the stakes of Dolores being dead are not false. I love Evan Rachel Wood and don't want her to leave, but they made a huge deal of it, so I hope it wasn't a flashy misdirection.
Amen.
I agree. Yeah, much like Anthony Hopkins season 1, maybe there'll be like a flashback kind of thingy, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like they usually. I mean, I guess when Maeve and a bunch of them got shot down in the season 2 finale, but I don't think any of us assumed that they were like dead. So it does seem like this show doesn't pull a Walking Dead essentially, and is okay with like killing off their main characters. So we'll see. I totally agree with Ethan, though. I thought it was a beautiful way to send off Evan and Rachel Wood, to send off the character of Dolores. Maybe we could see flashbacks and bring back Evan and Rachel Wood. But I mean, if you see Lawrence in this episode, they're more than fine to have cameos from previous main characters.
Correct. It's kind of the advantage of them being hosts or whatever, is you can have these,
right.
Hell, we saw Jimmy Simpson like 3 episodes ago, so like they're more than happy to bring back actors.
And he was in a flashback in this episode, even though it was a previously filmed scene. Let's see. Let me gush about.
He was smiling and happy before he became, Bad William.
Let me gush about Jeffrey Wright for a minute. The scene with Gina Torres was amazing, and while all the pew pews are fun in this kind of thing, this is the kind of thing I live for. They certainly went out of their way to stack this show from the onset. Now that a certain Mr. Hopkins is gone, we have a younger actor of, dare I say, the same caliber in our little genre show, which is really nice. I'm also very excited to see what Aaron Paul does in the future. Speaking of Bernard, let's discuss the post-credit and season 4. This is my favorite part. Just like last year, I certainly hope we get a lot more of Westworld in the future season.
Yeah, they ran out of ideas in the parks. They're like, we'll just put all the dust in one place, call it Dustworld.
There's mentions now Dustworld, but also as this post-apocalyptic dust. I think it's just like he was sitting in a hotel for 50 or 100 years.
I mean, is that just like did the hotel lose its license? Did they just not clean the room? Did they think that somebody was in there?
That too. The hotel
they did put a "Do Not Disturb" sign on it.
Yeah, so. Exactly. They just they're really courteous. They're like, okay, I guess he really doesn't want to be disturbed. We won't clean.
It's a good point. Like that hotel would have had to have gone out of business that night and then just abandon it.
There were gunshots going on outside, so like maybe the hotel people just up and left. And then they just abandoned everything.
Maybe whatever, like maybe the end of the world type thing happens right after.
Yeah, I mean, we did see the explosions happen, so maybe like infrastructure was torn apart and craziness happened.
Yeah.
So I see a couple of scenarios. One, we don't get Bernard next year, as we need to see how we get to that point, and he doesn't look like he's moving from that bed anytime soon. 2, we get the parallel story of Bernard and the Sublime, as well as the Caleb Maeve rise. I prefer option 2, as I want more Jeffrey Wright, and I can't wait to see what Bernard, whoever comes back in his body, has up in their sleeves. A sprawling epic that ends thousands of years later sounds amazing to me. Also, that we may see how the new Man in Black evolves to the fidelity tested William is very exciting. Again, another great season that has me really pumped for season 4. The only thing I'll say in Star Wars segment of the show is, may the Fourth be with you always. So I leave you, Jay, Jack, and Mike now one last time for Westworld Season 3 with gratitude and thanks for your work. And for those of you who I won't dignify by using their names, real or fake, I leave you with a quote from our dearly departed Dolores Abernathy: "You're all copies of me."
Oh!
Drop that mic. I love it.
Ethan for the win.
See you in 2022, the original, the sublime Ethan.
Oh, I love that.
That was you can't argue with that line. I mean,
hey, he brought it in the last episode. He was kind of mailing it in before that, but
he was phoning it in, right?
Yeah, phoning it in. All right. Well, that will wrap up our listener feedback. And Jack usually does not do a crackpot theory of the week on the season finale because he's lazy. But do you have anything inspired that you want to say? What we're going to expect in season 4?
You don't know what direction they're going to go. So you have to, if they're going to go where you see what's his name, Bernard wake up, you got to think that they're going to move further in the future, and it's going to be some kind of. But I seriously have no idea what they're going to do.
I do want to chronicle the fan, everyone's love of Ethan's email. Eckhart, which is a bit biased. This is such a good email. Oh, snap to his mic drop. Sasha, oh my God, that was amazing. Standing O.
Ooh.
So there you go, Ethan. Not Ethan. I think the gauntlet's been dropped. Thank you to all of our feedback that we've gotten this season. A lot of great character, a lot of really great writing.
Yes. A lot of great rivalries. This felt like an entire side plot to the season.
Yes. I 100% agree. And I hope all of you that contributed to this season's listener feedback section, I hope you come back for season 4 as well, because unlike the Maeve and Dolores showdown, you guys were lived up to any expectation I could have for it. So,
and depending on when it comes back, I may not be here. So, it just it depends on when it comes back. I don't know if I can wait 10, 15 years.
What we'll do is we'll just, again, I think I've said it before, you have 15 years of documented podcasting. So what we'll do is just have a computer analyze all of that, and then we'll just have like a algorithm-based Jack that
like this. And exactly. We'll do a deep fake. We'll get like previous video footage of you and just like put the mouth just saying those automated words.
That would be nice. I could live on. I'd be like Dolores.
I mean,
exactly.
A computer could pick out your patterns pretty easily. Just like Rose and Bernard work for Dharma. Don't drive with your cell phone. Like
Sirach isn't alive.
Yeah, Sirach isn't alive. Well, I don't know if it happened or not. We don't know for sure. See,
we don't
easily have a computer doing it. Eckhart says we are working on Jack's fidelity test right now,
and he's been failing for many, many years at this point.
It's broken. It's definitely broken. All right, well, that will do it for this season of Westworld with Jay, Jack, and Mike. Again, thank you for everyone that's listened. And to the hosts of this show, Jack, we have been podcasting there for nearly 15 years. That's a really long effort.
That's a long time. That's longer.
That's longer, believe it or not.
It's longer than most marriages, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Surprisingly enough. But yeah. So it's always a pleasure. I couldn't imagine talking about this show or any type of show like this without you there, Jack. So thank you again for another great podcast. Mike, you are a treasure and one of my favorites conversations. And again, in those 15 years of podcasting, one of my favorite people to do a podcast with. So,
happy birthday to your son.
Yes, my son, my little Padawan, was born on May 4th at 10:08 p.m., which we have passed at this point. So yeah, he's a full year.
I can't believe it's been a year.
I mean, listen, I will sort of echo what Ethan said of like, I can't believe what's changed in 8 weeks. I cannot believe what's changed in a year. Right. So I'm looking forward to what's going to keep on coming for him to eventually see these seasons, but hopefully not watch Daddy's corresponding podcasts. They might not be. I don't know how appropriate they are for children.
The best thing about your son, when he's like 8 or 9, he can do watch first 3 seasons to prepare for season 4.
That's right. It'll finally come out.
We found that if Jack dies, conundrum. We just have Asher come on.
There you go.
Zach can do it as well.
I think we need Jay and Jack the next generation.
That's much cooler name than my name, so
I think it could happen. We're raising a new generation of podcasters. But yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, again, to Ethan's point, so much has happened both in the world and our lives. But like, this has been a really great constant to go back to each and every Monday. And I've always loved it. It's been a while since we've gotten together and done stuff. So hopefully, whether it's Stranger Things or Westworld or some other show that's going to come along in the near future, that we'll have an opportunity to come back together again. And I'll keep wearing this cowboy hat, I guess.
Nice.
As long as the cowboy hat's still together, it's like Willie Nelson's guitar. As long as the
cowboy
hat is still there, still a podcast. All right. Well, that will do it for this season. I want to thank people that make this show possible. Our patrons, especially Tack from Tokyo, that one guy, Joanne with Plan, Drake the Destroyer, Maggie the Magnificent, Greg the Gray. I think that's everybody. And I'm pretty sure. Maybe. And then jayandjack.com/Amazon. Use the link if you still use Amazon. Support our Amazon overlords. And yeah, I think that's a good.
Well, by using Amazon for us, you're taking money away from Jeff Bezos because he has to pay us.
He's having to pay the Jay and Jack production full.
So if enough people used it, it would really put a hurt on him.
He makes $100 million a day, but those like $3. That's
I'm saying, but if more people did it, it might get up to $6. Wait, $3 a day? You're way overestimating.
$3 a day.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Well, that will do it. We'll see you all in 2027. Until then, hasta luego and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that's it.
All right.
I'm going to end the broadcast. Everyone who's here live, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening all season long. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
So thank you, everyone. I did want to say Miami Mike, back to your other thing. Automated Jack, Dean Spanos messed up. That's another one we can put in there.
Well, I don't say messed up, but I know he's keeping it clean.
But anyways, thank you, everybody out there in live video land. And
he did mess up.
We'll see you on the other side.
F you, Dean Spanos.